Welcome back. I'm delighted to be joined on stage with Catherine Beecham, Head of Materials and Sustainability at Marks & Spencer, Sue Fairley, Head of Sourcing, Sustainability and Quality at New Look, and Tim Clark, Technical Director at John Smedley. And they've all joined me on stage this morning to talk about their experience of the EPR sandbox project and their thoughts on what an EPR system should look like. So Sue, I'm going to ask all of you the same question, but Sue, I'm going to start with you. What has this project highlighted for you in understanding your product information?
Thanks for letting me talk. I would say that what it's highlighted is that I'm very aware that at the moment we are ingesting a lot of information that we have to spit out to a lot of people, basically. And so when we were asked if we'd take part in this, I remember thinking, okay, don't know if we've got the data you need, but let's give it a go. And actually was pleasantly surprised that actually our data was in pretty good shape. I think the one thing that I'm really aware of at the moment is there's a real convergence. And I think the thing that I'm feeling from sitting and being involved with the EPR piece, the Sandbox project, and also hearing what I've been hearing this morning and what we will hear this afternoon, is that actually there is a real convergence now of what was a very wide agenda for our business around what we needed to do, basically, to act responsibly. And I think when we came to the data, it was I'm feeling a bit smug because actually the timing was perfect. If you'd asked me for the information 2 or 3 years ago, I don't think we would have been in such a good shape. And I think that's the first piece of advice I would give, is that actually people need to get on this journey and they need to make sure that their data is in good order. Our journey towards science-based targets had actually meant that we had a lot of work to do with the laboratories, with our suppliers, etc. Moving, for example, from a consumer-facing labelling of fibre composition to actually being able to record the weight of fibres within products. And actually, I think that helped a lot in terms of not, as you say, preparing for EPR based on the weight of a product, but actually recognising the weight and the combinations and the blends, etc., and actually what that's going to mean going forward. It also really helped me from a data perspective because I'm having lots of conversations across the business. And I've become a real diplomat, is the best way of describing it. So sustainability in a large organisation and being able to talk to the people that need to be acting together to be able to drive the right results is really key. And actually what I found with this data was that actually it played into a lot of the areas that I needed to make sure we're up to speed on what was coming down what's coming down the tracks at us, but also what we can do, the levers that we can use to actually affect the carbon footprint, the EPR, the consumer behaviour, etc. So actually the bubble diagrams that we got, basically, although if I'm really honest, didn't tell me an awful lot that I didn't know, it was a perfect way of actually helping me explain to the business that actually some of the changes that we had already made, what effect they had had, and actually with some small tweaks on some large participating categories, what effect that could have further on down the stream. I think from my perspective, it's been a useful tool, it's been a useful piece of work that we've done, and it also is, we've mentioned about DPR, etc., DPP. The piece about data, it's also really helping me to get I guess a bit up the stream. Everything we're working on at the moment with data, we're very lucky that we put an enterprise data warehouse in. We were able to use big data. We're ingesting data from just about everywhere at the moment. Being able to join that all together, the use of AI, and then competing with the buying teams, etc., and other people that want to use the new tools and technologies that we have to be able to look at data. It's pushing me a little bit up the pecking order, if you like, when the business is recognising actually how important this data is going to be. And that includes against the forecasters who are trying to get our forecasting as great as we can get it. I sat in a meeting with the buying teams a few weeks ago, and there's a piece which says, what's your sustainability and where are you on your targets and where are you on your roadmap? And they tell me, we've done this much on cotton, and we're doing this on this, and we're doing this with this supplier, and this supplier's got this hig, etc. But what they didn't tell me, there were other things that I was recognizing that were really participatory in the kind of work that you're talking about, and the things that we need to prepare for, that people haven't realized are really going to help our journey. And I think that it also helps from that perspective to be able to demonstrate that.
Thanks, Sue. Tim, from a different perspective, from a manufacturing brand that's been around for 250 odd years, what did you learn? What was your understanding about product information?
It's much the same as what Sue's already just gone through. I think the fact that we're all on a sustainability journey, the whole point of recording the data for sustainability has helped with the ERP system. You have to know the traceability, you've got to know your supply chain, you have to know how many garments you've sold, what weight they are, what the compositions are, because all of this is absolutely relevant to the final EPR system. And if we don't have an EPR, what have we got? It means that we can just keep tipping into the land, into the oceans, selling it onto third world countries. We've got a responsibility. But one thing it showed to me from a manufacturing perspective is that we think we're always on the back foot, but in actual fact, for a 240-year-old small company, we'd actually got the data that was needed by QSA and for the EPR project to be able to put meaningful data across not just a small to medium company, but also it transports into a large company database as well. So I think it was a good cross-section of people that you guys pulled together with New Look, with M&S, with us, with the others that all joined in, that it wasn't just a one-way stream. We'd all got something to give, and I think we all worked extremely well together. At first, we didn't always agree, but that's the whole part of having a debate, is that you debate and you get to the points that are more valuable to creating a system that's fair for all. But also for me, it's enabled me to transport some of the information that I've learned through this EPR process back into the business. And that's invaluable, because if we can make the business win, then the planet wins. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the planet that's the winner.
Thanks, Tim. And Catherine, what did the project highlight for you in understanding product information?
Yeah, so I think, like all businesses, we're doing a lot of reporting into our fibres. We do, a lot of work reporting into many parts of the business. But it was just interesting at the start to look at, what type of data we do have, and does the data all talk to each other? And similar to what Sue was saying, different parts of the business all coming together and jumping over 50,000 hoops to get the right people in the room to work with QSA and have the discussions on, can we even provide this data, and is it okay to pass over the data, and who's going to be looking at the data, and how they're going to be looking at the data. But it brought about lots of interesting discussions about, again, is the data the right priorities, and are we all working in the right direction, and how could we use this going forward? So it was a really great collaboration within the building. We're lucky as a big business, we have a really good PLM system, but it made us look at even the PLM system and how we're attributing our products, and how do we talk and think about durability. So it was a really, really great project. And I think really thinking, having worked in very small brands and obviously now in a big brand, really thinking about the different data, I think that was something we were really worried about at the start, was how would small brands manage and how would bigger brands manage, and the luxury sector and the different types. But that was what was really interesting about the project as a whole, was we all had actually very robust data, and that's just something I would say, it's not something to panic about, because actually you probably have more data than you think, and it's just about how we all move forward together in this. So I think that was something we were all a bit worried about at the start, but actually we were all really pleasantly surprised how much the 85% that Gerard mentioned was really significant, and we were actually really proud as a project team about how much came out and how much great data could be used.
Good. Just a brief point about SMEs. I mentioned in my opening remarks SIFIN. BFC and UKFT are hosting 4 places for SMEs on the next iteration of this EPR programme. So if there are any SMEs in the audience, do look at either the BFC or the IPF's website or UKFT's website on how to apply to take part in that next iteration. But Catherine, if I can stay with you for this one. How did the project help in identifying circular products and less circular products, and how is that going to move through into the design process?
So I think at M&S we think about circular as being obviously the design front end, but also the actual circular parts of the product. So we have our Another Life is how we talk about all of our products together. So obviously with our long-term partnership with Oxfam, we have our was called Swapping, now called Another Life because nobody could say it or spell it. And so we've got that great partnership. But what was interesting was if you looked at some of the data that Gerard was showing, you could really see we're having that take-back partnership and having the repair that we've just launched with Sojo. You could sort of look at having those circular business models that a lot of obviously businesses do have. You were able to think about that end as well as the front-end design end. So really thinking about how you design into your product as well as how you kind of think about the customer journey at the other end of the product in terms of reuse and in terms of repair and what's available for the customer there. And really for us, we have a lot of targets for 2025, which is very, very soon, like 100% recycled polyester. We were able to kind of look at the products and think about, what would that mean in the potential EPR system. So that was really, really valuable. And obviously with the Sojo, Repaired by Sojo being a really brand new relationship with us, think about in future parts of this project, what would that look for us as well, which would be really interesting.
Thanks. And Tim, what about you? How did the project help you in identifying the more circular and less circular products, and has that fed into the design process?
Yeah, it's certainly fed into the design process, and we now have a sustainable design manager. So we're starting to think about how we design and circularize everything right from the go-get. So right from the raw material all the way through, we think of nothing else now other than what impact is it going to have, what carbon is it going to create, and how can we reuse, recycle, and prevent wastage. One thing it pushed, and that's thanks to Ian, our managing director, was that it pushed a circular project where I showed last year we created the first garment at John Smedley that we'd made from waste, from wool waste. And here we are now, we've launched this year a product, only 2 colours at the minute, but it's a full range of total recycled product, no additional chemical, no additional water, and it showed us just how much carbon we can save and what it means to a circularity and a reuse. And the fact that this garment now can be recycled again and again and again, there's no end use, so no carbon or reduced carbon, and it leads into the circularity and also the EPR system that you score points, but it's not about scoring the points, it's about doing the right thing. And if we can all just chip away and do incremental change like we've tried to do, then we all benefit and the planet again benefits.
Thanks, Tim. And Sue, same question to you.
I think building on what you've both said, I think the upstream piece, I think we have a good handle on, basically, the levers that we can pull and need to pull. I think the downstream piece and the way in which that could contribute, I think that's something that obviously is very much still a work in progress. So from the point of view of what you'll hear this afternoon, mapping, the capabilities for the blends, for example, so we use a lot of blended fabrics, and actually what is going to happen as far as the blends are concerned. But I think what I would say is, so from the answer to your question is, what does it mean? Well, actually, it's about, again, converging quite a number of projects that are happening within the business, not just within our business, probably within most of your businesses, looking at the design for circularity, the selection of raw materials, the ability to actually then do anything with the product post-consumer, which is the biggest challenge that we have at the moment. But in recognizing, how you can use the levers through actually not wanting to have things done to us, but actually to working with people to understand what that journey is going to look like. Also bringing in the gentleman from Southampton, he caught me just before, basically. He asked the question earlier about the upstream piece, and I do think that's really key. I think, the selection of the raw materials, the messages, when we've been talking and tracing, for example, the not just our tier 1, but our tier 2, and then back to our tier 3 suppliers, it's very clear that there are some messages that we think are getting through really clearly, but are not, basically. So actually being able to share this kind of imperative further up the value chain, as well as work on what that downstream is going to look like, it all has to be connected. So the idea of being able to work our extended producer responsibilities, which I think we're acknowledging are coming our way, basically, and therefore let's not have it done to us, but actually work out how we can actually balance the way in which those those costs to the business are then going to be actually played into help us deliver what we need to downstream particularly, I think is going to be really key.
Great, thanks. We heard earlier from Libby about some other elements of an EPR scheme beyond the fees, which is basically, and the data, which is basically what the Sandbox project looked at. So Tim, what are your views on things like compulsory in-store take-backs, landfill destruction, things like that?
Thanks for that one. I totally agree. Nothing should be going to landfill, and it shouldn't be destroyed. However, the destruction part is the recycle part from where I stand. And we all play a part in the UK because we all have to follow the highest degrees of compliance of product production. So we all have to test. So one good thing about things produced in the UK is that we know exactly where they've come from, what they've been made with, what the chemicals are, and how we can actually make those as environmentally friendly as we possibly can. That all helps then lead in to the recycle part. And we've proved you can recycle efficiently and effectively without increasing the water usage, without increasing chemical usage, and also reducing energy. So everything that Libby said this morning also fed into things that we were also doing at John Smedley, but also the things that we discussed at length during the EPR process. I think there's a few things that we've got to agree on, there's things that we've got to agree to differ on. But at the end of the day, we're producers, and I think we all sit here, and if we could get away without having to pay a tax, we would do that quite willingly, because it is an extra burden that we're going to have to pay something. And I sit in two camps because we're a manufacturer, but we're also a retailer. So we're also thinking about how we can make this better from a manufacturer's perspective that leads to a better format for the final retailer to have the information on how they can reuse, recycle, or upcycle.
Thanks, Tim. Catherine, in-store take-backs, landfill?
Yeah, so obviously, as I said, we've had an in-store take-back since 2008 with our friends at Oxfam. I think the challenge is if that is put across the entire store network, that can be very, very challenging. It's in a certain number of our stores and has been rebranded as Another Life. We're trying to make it more prominent so that more of our customers and Oxfam supporters do understand that it's there. It is a real challenge for a lot of our stores. We have very tiny, small stores. We have very strange shaped stores. So, being able to make sure if we had to do it in our full network, like many other brands and retailers, would be a challenge. I think the challenge as well is if it was put on only high street and bricks and mortar stores and not online, that would be a massive challenge because for a lot of people that have car parks, they would be taking up the majority of the product back, and then where does that product go? And I think the problem we've got at the moment in the industry is we've got the waste problem and not necessarily the solution in terms of the obviously the recycling, which is why we've also been part of the ACT project with obviously Sue and many others. So I think the challenge we've got at the moment is if we bring in the ban to landfill and we haven't got a solution in terms of recycling, the two things have got to come together, which is why, M&S, we really do support the EPR, but in terms of not having an option to recycling, that's something we're really wanting to support the industry and move forward on, because we don't have a solution of where this waste is going to go.
Thank you. And Sue, same question to you.
I might just pass on this question. I think it will be discussed a lot this afternoon, but I think, again, I'm just going to go back to how things need to be connected. Because for me, we've done lots of tests and learn, and whilst it's great when it works, but actually the volumes that we're talking about are not being tackled, basically. And I think that for me is the piece that we really have to face into. I think Libby presented this morning, and I really resonated with a lot of the data that she was showing around, how the consumer views it, what they want, etc. The reality is that actually, whilst our colleagues in the room from the textile recycling world basically are doing a huge amount, asset stripping that as much as they possibly can, ending up with, the absolute basics of what we need to do. The reality is it needs to happen on our doorstep, and we've got to learn some lessons from that. And I'm interested to know what we do in the meantime, basically, because obviously you can't move it into Europe. You don't want it on the beaches, and everything we have to do. I don't think I can answer that question here. I think that's why we're part of the project, basically.
Okay, I'm going to give you a question that hopefully you can answer.
Okay.
What key message do you want us to take to the government when it considers a textiles EPR scheme and how a fee system should work?
I think it's very clear, and I think any one of us would answer this question in the same way. I think the first thing, it has to be a level playing field. That's the most important thing. And that includes for the product that's coming in under the de minimis and various other ways in which that's happening. How that's going to work, that needs to be worked through. I think from the point of view of actually, it has to be a fair system. I think there's still a lot of discussions that need to go through in terms of the impact on the consumer. So on the one hand, there are those volume producers putting tens of millions of product on the market. If the way this works, basically, we'll need to shape ourselves up to prepare for this. On the other hand, somebody needs to be holding up the end of the consumer, because ultimately the cost will come on the consumer, basically. And I think from that perspective, mum with 3 kids versus a luxury purchase, basically, that piece still needs to be worked through. So, and I'm not the expert to deal with that one, but I think that's the message, is basically, let's get on and do it and sort out what it's going to look like.
Thanks. Tim, same question to you.
Yeah, again, as Sue said, it's got to be a fair system, and it's got to be fair for all, and it's also got to be affordable for all as well. It's no good having a system where people will find a loophole to get out of it. This, if it's going to come, it's got to be fair. We've also got to take it on the chin, and we've got to create a process. And again, I think for all of us who've sat on the EPR process, it's the first opportunity we've had to take things to government rather than government impose this legislation. So if DEFRA or anyone is sat in here, I think you've got to take it. There's 250 people in this room. We are generally the experts within the textile field, and they should be drawing on our expertise to ensure that we've delivered the right data and the right information and the right solution. So for me, I look forward to joining Gerard and the rest of the team for the next year to try and finalise and see what we can come up with and make this the best system for everybody.
Thanks, Tim. And Catherine.
Yes, I think as a business we really do support EPR, and we'll definitely be on the next part of this journey of the programme. It's really important for us because it is about putting the right product on the market in the first place, and I think that this is an incentive for people to really think about the product that they're putting on the market. But also it's going to encourage circular behaviours, it's going to change the playing field of the product that's put on the market and the circular business models that are going to come out of it. And I think that's a really important part of how the business are going to change. So I think that's a really important thing for all of us and all of what we've learned coming out of this. And I think, obviously, there is going to need to be this fee, but the reality is we need those funds to set up the future recycling industry that we need and the support that we need for the textiles sorters and recyclers. And that's why, we also need this EPR fee to drive that change that we need for the fibre-to-fibre recycling. And that's a really, really important point that this project is obviously going to drive out as well.
Can I just add one more thing? And the other, that would be great to be UK-centric and coming up with some ideas basically about how we can make this work. But also, we sell to Zalando. I'm also a supplier into Europe. And therefore, please, government, talk to other governments about what this is going to look like.
A small ask for UKFT, BFC and BRC in the room then. We have a short amount of time for questions, so if you do have a question, please keep it short, and please do tell us your name and where you're from. And I already have a hand up at the back.
Thank you very much for that. Jenny Holloway from Fashion Enter. Not strictly EPR, but it is about sustainability, and that's what this conference is about. And the question I'm going to ask. Now, I think it's a well-known fact, having been an ex-senior buyer, that a lot of waste is actually overbuying. Now, we're trying to compete as garment manufacturers with intake margin, where really you need to be looking at exit margin. So what is the view from Marks & Spencer's and New Look perspective about making in the UK?
Sue.
Thanks for that one. Thanks, Jenny, for that question. The reality is we're also trying to survive as a retailer, and the economics have to stack up, I'm afraid. And the reality is, yes, you're right, actually the customer does want newness and she wants it regularly, which means shorter orders, which obviously the bigger factories are not liking. And I'm very supportive. We're going to a lot of offshore factories now, the robotics and the automation and the various different things which are already coming through. And I came out, my first job was in a factory in Ashington making men's suits for Next and Austin Reed. And I spent most of my early career as a technologist up and down the motorway to Parkland and all the mills that were around Yorkshire, etc. As a romantic, I'd love to actually bring manufacturing back to the UK, but we've got a lot of work to do to get it to the point at which it can actually supply in the way in which we need it to.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'd agree with what Sue's saying. There's many challenges. We do still buy a lot of cloth from the UK, and so there is, maybe potential in the future. We've done some collections, and we do buy some product in the UK, but it is a challenge.
Thank you. One more question at the front there.
Hi. I'm Revati. I run an upcycling and upskilling studio in London. I'm really heartened by what you mentioned about the partnership with Sojo. And what I'd like to say is that there is a large number of community tailors with skills that are currently being unused. So our whole area is about how do we connect unused fabric, textiles, clothing, with unused skills. And I wondered if I could hear a little bit more about your experience with Sojo and whether there's a possibility of widening that. Thank you.
Yeah, so definitely. So we launched Sojo on the 22nd of August, I think. So it's only been running a couple of months in terms of our partnership. Obviously, they've been around for a few years and been working with the likes of Selfridges, Garni, and many other retailers. And we're really excited about that because we think it gives, we're trying to ask the customers to really love their products for longer. We believe our products are made well and they're made to last, but if there are problems, or they do need, a lining changed or a zip malfunctions, they have got an option, which is great. And we have seen an enormous uptake, which was beyond what we thought, which is fantastic. So yeah, there's obviously a lot of opportunity in this market. It is online, and obviously we've seen John Lewis do the same, and there's many other brands doing similar, which is great. And we've also put a load of videos onto our website, which I know other brands have done similar, to try and also help people at home that maybe just want to sew a button on or understand how they can also put a zip in themselves, because we all know those are skills that many of us have lost if we can't ask our mum or our neighbour and give them a bottle of wine and ask them to do it for us. So we've tried to sort of help with that. But yeah, we know there's many opportunities, and we also know that a lot of people do have a local tailor, and this is, we're not trying to take over from local tailors in those scenarios. This is really for maybe even a different customer that wants an online offer and an opportunity to send something away and get it back within 7 days. But I'm sure there's a lot of, we'll see it expanding hopefully over the next sort of few months to a year.
Tim, Sue, do you have any comments on the repair piece?
Well, it's something that we've been doing as long as I can remember. So we've always taken garments back, we've repaired them, and our menders are some of the best menders in the world. They can invisibly repair exceptionally well. And not everybody knows it, but garments do come back and we do repair them. So when we started doing our sustainability reports, it was one of the things that helped us understand where we stood along the EPR system, that, repair gives you that longevity of product. The products are already made to last. And, only the other week we had a garment back into us. It was 22 years old. And, I can't believe that someone's kept a garment for 22 years and it still fits them. So all credit due to them for that. But it was repaired. Our menders repaired it, returned it, and the wonderful letter that you get back. So it also gives you a great satisfaction sometimes as well. And that's worth more than anything that you can get back from a payment. So all I can urge is, Sojo's doing a wonderful job, and we will be connecting with Sojo because we won't be able to keep up with demand. As the circularity movement gets stronger and stronger and they understand that things can be repaired, there's going to be more of it. So it's a case that, there's someone there, we've got people that can do it as well, and that we pull together as a team. And I think if we all pull together as a team then there's only one winner.
Sue, final comment?
Really, really quickly. I think the point you make about localising this is really key. I think, there's thresholds basically, but actually it being readily available. I work for a menswear business. All you guys in the room are used to having your suits and your shirts and your whatever altered or available in every length. Our post-purchase journey, the returns going up and various others, a lot of it actually could be helped through alteration and repair, basically. So yeah, we're absolutely investigating all of that at the moment.
Great. Thank you very much indeed, Catherine, Sue, Tim. It was great to hear from you. Thank you.